Welcome, everyone, to episode 163 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, and I'm coming to you from a really big rave somewhere on the beach here in Brooklyn, New York. I mean, that could be true. Like, it could be Brighton Beach, it could be Coney Island. You don't know. But, I am sad to report that as cool as I might seem, I have never been to the Eiffel Tower. But you know what? I am not handling this study on the future of technology alone. No, who else is here with me?
The mystical, magical, mysterious Steve Guntley. And this is the podcast about digital fortune tellers, velvet engines, and matching bushes. That's because this is the podcast about Prompt, the very latest full moon movie and the most recent, unfortunately, to be embracing full moon technology, or AI technology, rather. We're going guestless, as we often do with our very, very new movies. And as with other of our very recent movies, there's not a whole lot of research for us to dig into really with this one. So we're kind of just going to have like a free flowing conversation about our thoughts on this most recent entry.
I end up enjoying these episodes because not that I mind putting in any of the work for the show. Like you and I are very similar in that we take the show seriously and we want to, do as much background work as we can besides just watch the movie. But every once in a while, when you're handcuffed in a way like this, where it's like there's not really much to report on. So we watch the movie and all of our thoughts are kind of uniquely our own. Like there's not really, we're not pulling from sources that we're citing. We're not really being influenced too much by 20 or 30 years of a reputation of a movie to deal with. We're coming in just being like, well, this movie came out. I mean, by the time when this airs, it will have been about 4 months ago, but yeah, I mean, only 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. It's a really fresh to the point where when we put it into the spreadsheet, I wasn't even sure if it was going to be available yet for us to watch. And I was kind of like, well, I hope it is, because I think we bumpered it that we were doing it. But like, yeah, I kind of enjoy, much like when we have an episode where we're interviewing someone and we kind of let them just take over. This has a completely different but equally rewarding energy where there's no preconceived notions about how we're coming in. It's like this movie Prompt came out in December of 2025.
Yeah.
That was not a long time ago. And it is very much of a moment right now. And so I'm looking forward to having this conversation because, Steve, just right out of the gate, in your intro, you said embracing AI technology. And while I agree with if you're going to be like prominently featuring something, I think the general consensus is that you're embracing it. I struggle a little bit with this one in terms of where Charles Band really does fall here. So I think there's going to be some comparisons to our conversation on Amy the Visitor, maybe a little bit of our conversation on Quadrant.
Right. Yeah, which are the other kind of recent ones that really utilize the AI technology. I'm also going to do something that I rarely, if ever, do, and I'm going
podcast nude.
Exactly. Well, no, you never see below the waist. You don't know what's going on. No, but I am going to give, I guess, a bit of a spoiler warning on this one because I'm going to be talking a lot about the ending of this movie. And as of right now, we're recording this in February. You're hearing this in April. But as of right now, we had to pay to rent this one. Like, it's not on the full moon streaming services or any of the free services yet. I imagine by April, it probably will be. These usually have a pretty quick turnaround. So I want to give people a chance to watch it. I'm going to say, I do recommend people watch this. I actually quite enjoyed a lot of what's going on here, and in ways that I didn't think I would. So I'm just going to preface that right now. I'm going to say, I think go into this movie blind and then watch the film and then come back and listen to us, because there's going to be some spoiler talk on here. And I just want to, set that template here. But let's learn a little bit about Prompt, which was released December 5th, 2025. It's directed by Charles Band. It's written by J.P. Barton, and it stars Lily Bell, Elliot Woods, Jax Cody, Ian S. Peterson, Lana Barton, Rib Hillis, and Jessica Morris. That's the entire cast. Now, yeah, so as of this recording, like we said, this came out a little over 2 months ago, and this is about as fresh as we get on this show. So there's next to no research other than to state that I don't believe that this movie was included in the slate of pulp noir movies, which was kind of the latest like full moon push. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if they changed the title, if this was originally part of that and then they changed the title to something else, or if this is just kind of its own thing. But I don't think it's a pulp noir movie.
I'm going to agree with you. And listeners, if you happen to know that we're wrong about this, by all means, like email us or leave a comment letting us know, because I'm sort of the same frame of mind. I looked up and down the list of pulp noir stuff, and there's stuff that hasn't dropped yet that's been in post-production, like Streamer and a few, or Subscriber rather. Not, I was conflating that with Death Streamer, which we covered on the show, but there's
which
one called.
I thought this might have been or like a retitle of Streamer somehow, but I don't think it is. I think it's its own.
No, and because there is one called Subscriber that was in the pulp noir, which I might have Barbara Crampton in it, and I think is also maybe directed by or at least produced by Zalman Band.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so we'll get to that at one point. At last I checked, that was one that was still in post-production in upcoming projects, and that was true of a lot of this pulp noir stuff. And this was one that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think that this was part of the pulp noir, because I feel like maybe AI specifically wasn't something that was on Charles Band's mind for the pulp noir. I think he had a very clear vision. One, we want to make movies that are a little darker in tone for the subject matter for some of those, but also to give them an opportunity to go back and use the black and white filter on some of the other full moon movies that he felt had a noirish elements, or the way that they were shot. Now, we've covered a bunch of them on the show to differing levels of success. I think that works. But here, I think this was an afterthought, and not to sound dismissive of it, but I mean, I feel like the pulp noir thing was already kind of slated out. And then I feel like Charles Band's, if not obsession, at least fascination and interest in AI and how it's affecting art and how it's affecting the film industry, kind of found its way for this one, kind of cutting the line in front of some of those other movies and rushing up in production, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the heavy use of AI and just kind of the pacing of this movie would make it pretty easy to kind of throw together, for lack of a better term. But we'll get into a little bit of that. I want to welcome to the show J.P. Talbot, a debut screenwriter, this is his very first writing anything. I'm not familiar with his history or anything like that, but he is the sole credited writer of this one. And also want to welcome our star, Lily Bell. So Lily Bell, prior to this, has only worked in adult films. She's a pretty prolific adult film actress. And Charles Band has used adult film actresses in supporting roles in the past. I can't think of an immediate other example of an adult film actress kind of crossing over and taking a lead role in a full moon movie. So that's notable here. According to the ever reliable IMDb trivia, she was actually a late addition. Originally, the lead was going to be played by an actress named Keep Chambers, who we previously saw in Piranha Women a million years ago. But she had to drop out at the last minute, and so they brought in Lily Bell. I think she's quite good in this. She's there's a limited amount of things that she's being asked to do, but I think she's very charismatic and she holds the screen. Now, this is again making the argument that this isn't part of the pulp noir canon. This is actually a lot closer in spirit to like a Torchlight or a Surrender Cinemas film. Lots of nudity, lots of sex, lots of kind of borderline softcore stuff going on here.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of it lately.
We sure have.
Our scheduling has just kind of worked out that way, between us being like, we haven't done a Moonbeam movie in a while, and then coincidentally having multiple guests pick a Torchlight movie or Surrender Cinema movie. All of a sudden, it's like 3 or 4 out of like 10 on the spreadsheet are these movies, and this one is, you're right, very close in spirit. I'm going to speculate something, and again, just like what we said before, not afraid to be proven wrong. Charles Band has used the pseudonym Robert Talbot before, and I'm going to go so far as to say that I think J.P. Talbot is Charles Band.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
He
Um,
loves Talbot. Talbot and Robert Amante is. If you see an Amante in one of those, then you know that that's him using a pseudonym for his more. Well, see, now I say his more smutty stuff, but I think that's where this would fall. So the fact
and
that
his name's still on it. Yeah, his name is on this as a director. So maybe there's some like
mm,
Writers Guild or something rules.
that's
So
true.
I'm and JP Talbot, if you're out there listening and you're a real guy, write in and let us know. We'd love to know it because um I kind of wound up being surprised by this movie in a couple of ways, but so basically the premise of this, if you're not familiar, is that Lily Bell plays I guess she's kind of like an advertising she owns like an advertising firm, or she's like a programmer who's created this AI program that all of these advertisers are starting to use. Like she can type in beautiful influencer on the beach
Mhm.
eating a sandwich, and that's part of the now it's this huge successful sandwich campaign. So she's very successful in her career, and she's also very let's say erotically drawn to the possibilities of AI porn. So she keeps kind of using her own engine to test out these different like pornographic scenarios, usually involving two women. And it's always funny. Like, so all the prompt lines are always like, two redheads kissing in golden hour, being intimate with each other underwater or something like that. And then we're kind of subjected to, and I say subjected to because I think this AI, the AI visuals in this is still really cringy. Like, we get to see a lot of these really kind of poorly rendered AI girls like touching each other and kissing each other while she kind of drools over it. So it's kind of the first female gooning movie, I guess you could call it. I don't know. She's got multiple screens and she's just like obsessed with watching all of these AI videos. And eventually in these videos, she starts to notice like a random, like non-AI generated man who appears to just be like showing up in glass or in mirrors or in anything like that. Like she just catches a little glimpse of him. And whenever she does, she just feels like incredibly drawn to him and incredibly turned on by him and just kind of like mesmerized by him. All of this kind of culminates in her, she brings a friend over at one point. It's played by an actress named Elliot Woods. And it's a very, very long scene of her showing her prompt after prompt after prompt, waiting for the mystery man to show up. It's really protracted. And I was kind of like losing my patience with it. Eventually, they do see the man, which leads them to like start making out and having sex in front of the computer.
I'm telling you, to tie it all back together, this man is just stimulating the pineal gland.
He is, exactly. Yeah, it's very From Beyond. Yeah, exactly that. So here's where I'm going to kind of spoil the ending of this movie. The big revelation at the end of the film is that the mystery man that we see in the glass is the actual programmer, and Lily Bell's character is actually the AI creation. And it's one of those twists that like I probably, and this is going to sound dismissive, but in a higher production value movie, or if this were like an episode of Black Mirror or something like that, I would have seen this coming. And I think this movie really cannily uses, I'm going to say, I guess, like the low expectations of like what a full moon movie is to really kind of flip you on its head, because there's a lot of like kind of clever stuff dotted throughout this. Like, okay, so when the mystery man shows up, the women kind of go into this trance. They're sort of obsessed with the screen. They're being very performative in their sexuality, and they keep repeating lines over and over again. They say, "Is this good for you? Is this what you want? Is this what you want? Is this what you want?" And it didn't rub against me in any way, because I was like, yeah, obviously sometimes full moon movies have dialogue like this. Sometimes it's like a little clunky. Sometimes it's that. And then when you get that revelation, the big twist at the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, they're snapping into this because they're performing now. Like he's the user and he's typing in prompts, and like the reason they feel compelled to do this and the reason they feel compelled to say this is because it's him like interacting with it. And I was like, you know what, this is actually really quite clever, and it's quite a smart way to subvert like the sort of the low expectations of a full moon movie.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think you you articulated that really well, and I had the same thought where I was like, with this kind of twist, it does kind of remind me of just like a quickly, cheaply made episode of Black Mirror. But I felt like when I walked away from it, I was thinking, okay, I think the difference though between this and something that like Charlie Brooker wrote on Black Mirror
Yeah.
is that I'm not entirely sure how Charles Band or JP Talbot feels about this. Like
Right. Yeah.
there's definitely beats where it's like, okay, yeah, for it to then narratively kick in with a twist. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past anyone for expecting this to just be very by the numbers, beat by beat, and then have it be that it consumes her and then that's all she's doing. The twist did sort of come out of nowhere because you're not expecting a twist in this kind of movie. And then to think that it's like, okay, well, maybe, like you said, some of that dialogue was purposeful. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, and then you can look back and go, okay, I can see now here where this maybe felt stilted or almost improvised, where maybe like, oh no, maybe this is more purposeful than I was giving the movie credit for initially. But I think when I walked away from it being like, okay, so that was the twist, it wasn't inherently I wasn't able to tell, like, okay, is Charles Band saying like condemning AI for that, or is this just happened to tell a story of where the future is going that kind of flips the script on the viewer?
Yeah.
That was my biggest, like, I guess I don't want to call it a nitpick, but that was my biggest detractor from getting the full amount of enjoyment that I potentially could out of watching this, was that I was hoping there would be some clarity on finally, like, what are his feelings towards generative AI
Yeah.
in terms of just its infiltration of society. Obviously, he feels like it's okay in art because he's using it, but it's like a Black Mirror episode would go beyond that. It would be more like this dystopian idea of our um, dependence on technology.
Right. And I'm
And
I'm with
here
you.
it's
I
just
think
kind of like, oh, well, here we go. This is where we're headed.
yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the three movies that we've watched so far that use AI prominently are Quadrant, Amy the Visitor, and this one. And yeah, I think you're exactly right. The biggest problem I have with all of those movies is that I don't really know what Charles Band thinks about AI. Does he think this is a good thing? Is a bad thing? I think it's just kind of being employed as a tool, which I think is it's sort of worse. You're not really endorsing and you're not really condemning. You're just sort of like using it, which is tacitly endorsing the use of it.
Sure.
And look, Charles Band, he's producing a ton of movies. He's working on a budget. Like I can understand the appeal of something like this for somebody in his position and like a good way to make like an economical movie. Like I think Prompt was probably able to come together so quickly because this technology existed. And yeah, I wish it had a little bit more bite and it had a little bit more. I think this one works the best of the three that we've
Agreed.
seen so far because the AI is much more integrated into the plot of the movie and like the character motivations, and it is kind of at least playing with this dystopian idea of like who's watching who and what is our consciousness and like do we exist or like are we all part of a dog's dream, or all that kind of heady like
Yeah.
freshman philosophy stuff.
This was the one where the idea of getting any answers to those kinds of questions was just sort of a given, that with the budget and time and runtime, that the answer that no, you were
Yeah.
not going to get any of those answers. Is like, this thing's going to wrap up with its twist and credits are going to roll, and there's no epilogue and there's no kind of follow up on what this really means. Like,
No.
this movie is 62 minutes long. Like, this could have been 70 minutes, 72 minutes even, and there could have been maybe one of the other characters has some kind of like preamble, and she's, and then our main character here, whose name I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Taylor. Yeah, Taylor.
Taylor.
Name, yeah.
Yes, that is correct. She could have had a thing about how against the reliance on technology is, but then I guess narratively that wouldn't make sense because again, she's performing. So what would the
Right.
mystery man get out of that?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, and again, I think since we've seen so many of these full moon movies, we've seen so many of these Torchlight movies, we're not expecting Taylor to be like a fully fleshed out character. So again, like when the plot kind of reveals itself and like the twist sort of happens, like it was sort of like a light bulb where it's like, oh, this is why like she was so sort of ill-defined and why she just kind of seemed to be living in this one house and kind of like hypersexual and like focused on the computer. Like, I don't know. I'm going to talk about briefly two things that you have no investment in: Star Wars and video games. But it reminded me a lot of a video game from 2004 called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is this big, expansive RPG that hinges on this big reveal. Spoiler for a 22-year-old game, but it hinges on this big reveal that your character is actually like you're an amnesiac, like dark Sith Lord that like was presumed dead. Like you're this kind of like intergalactic terrorist that you've had this like complete mind wipe and like you had no idea this was your identity. And it's one of those things that worked. Again, a thing that could have been obvious in a movie, would have been obvious in a TV show, but was not obvious in a video game because you're used to having kind of a blank avatar of a character. You're used to having a character like wake up at the beginning of a game with no memory, and you customize his appearance and you customize his voice and everything like that. So it was using the structure of the game, the structure of an RPG to kind of pull the rug out from under you. And I think this movie's doing that in a very clever way as well. You know, and I have to give it props to that because I was sort of checking my watch, you know, proverbially. I don't really have a watch, but I was looking at my phone. I was making sure, I'm like, okay, like this thing is an hour and it's not like dragging necessarily, but it also isn't really going anywhere like super fast. Like it's not in a hurry to get anywhere. We're eating up a lot of time just kind of looking at this really shitty looking like generative AI porn. And it just didn't really seem to be going anywhere. And so getting that little Twilight Zone-y sort of like final payoff moment, it doesn't make the movie particularly profound or anything, but it does give us an interesting new perspective to look at it.
So I'm going to come in with a with a personal anecdote about something. So Steve, you and I both have, I mean, I don't know if you still have it, but we both have MetaQuest headsets.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, So when I got that a few years back, a buddy of mine had told me, "Oh, it's pretty cool for the VR stuff." So I bought one kind of on a whim, which was like a weird purchase for me because it's not something I normally would do. But I was like using it for the immersive experience, and I was like, "This is cool." So I was with some friends, and we were messing around with the headset, and one of my friends was like, "You got to see what porn looks like on this."
Yeah.
And so like we pulled it up just to see how weird it was. And it was one of the most off-putting things I've ever seen. And part of the reason for that is because in a world that is saturated with literally the instant gratification of anything that you could possibly want.
Yes.
The idea that you would want this, you know, would trade a more immersive experience for something that looks considerably faker and considerably like more pixelated and golden, and it's got that uncanny valley like weird look to it.
Yeah.
And it's like it was just so strange because it wasn't realistic. It was weird and artificial. And you know, I think to me, what I find the trade-off seems to be, and now we're going to lead into, I think, maybe a discussion about generative AI in general. The trade-off seems to be the basic lack of necessary effort versus the finished product.
Right. Yeah.
And the problem with that is that they often look terrible. Like there's a business down the block from me that I frequent, but they got super lazy and clearly chat GPT'd their some of their ads. And the ads, it was like the worst generative AI you've ever seen. Everything looked super phony. Words were spelled wrong. Words were blended together. It was just really haphazardly done and looked kind of hilarious, actually, because it was a thing about how you can order on Uber Eats on Uber Eats there, but they spelled it Uber Neats for some reason. And so my wife and I still laugh about that one from time to time. You know, and I think about just the saturation of like it must be, it's kind of a perverse version of when we first got iPods. It's like, oh, I've got an iPod and I can pirate music and then I can play whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same thing, but like magnified, like many, many times, where it's like, oh, I recognize this is going to look bad. And I recognize that this is not going to be like a simulation that is going to mirror a real experience.
Yeah.
But I can create anything that I want and have it happen, which is such an odd instant gratification thing that it's like, I'll just scroll on Instagram or Facebook and I'll be in a group of like, oh, it's like a group of horror movie lovers who talking about things, and people will just create generative AI things. There was one actually that caused kind of a stir in the like a Fangoria community
Yeah.
Facebook page, which was a guy, I don't know if he just shared it. I don't think he made it, but it was like a generative AI video of like the cast of Texas Chainsaw Massacre on set dancing to some like 70s or 80s sitcom theme song. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And like, who is this for? Why, besides the fact that you are saying, oh, I can type in a prompt of whatever I want, and this is going to create something which is kind of hints at us, getting towards a really dark place when you eventually this stuff does catch up to what real life looks like and you can't tell the difference between like AI and reality. Luckily, we're not
Yeah.
there yet. And I just wish that this was something that was more outwardly obvious in terms of Charles Band's thoughts towards this, which we don't really get here. I still kind of am
Yeah.
holding on to the fact that he thinks that it's a cool kind of money saving tool, and
Sure.
using it narratively here, it's like, oh, I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. I can sort of say something, but not really, and then also pay significantly less to make a movie than I would have in the past.
Totally. And I think like I said, I still don't think he's taking a stand on this one way or another, but I think the low quality of the AI animation we're seeing in this movie is a strong argument against the use of AI. This week, as we're recording this, and I'm sure, when you're listening to it, the world is a smoldering crater, so it won't matter. But like there's a lot of people sharing videos of like, oh, like we just replicated like a $200 million like summer blockbuster movie. Like we've made a new Spider-Man movie for you, but it's just recycling images from old Spider-Man movies. It's like, it's just taking like the Tobey Maguire or the Andrew Garfield or the Tom Holland Spider-Man, and it's just putting it in a new situation. So you're not creating a movie. You're not making anything. You're playing with dolls is what you're doing, or somebody else did recut. Like there's a video going around of like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, like fighting on a rooftop.
Oh
And
yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen that.
And people keep going like, oh my God, movies are so cooked. And I'm just like, first of all, no. Okay, this is piracy. This is appropriation of these two men's images and their faces. And like, it's kind of fucked up. And it's also, there's just a deadness behind the eyes of these things. And like, you can make it a facsimile and you can make it look like hyper realistic and you can make it look like a movie, but there's no soul behind it. There's no energy behind it. And you also, you know that the person that Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt are not making this movie together. Like it's not them. They're not yelling about the Epstein files and punching each other on the roof like these videos going around. So like I think you look at the porn that they're making in this movie, and everybody is hyper shiny. There's no sense of a blemish. Like their lips kind of come and go in some scenes. Like they're breathing underwater. Like it just all it looks very everybody looks very perfect and very airbrushed and just soulless, just dead.
They all look like dolphin skin.
They do. Yeah, they really do. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, okay, yeah, this is making a very strong argument against using AI for anything. But I also don't think that's the modus operandi here. I think that this is it's using this tool and kind of showing like, okay, what can we do for like very cheap? And it just the fact that what's being produced is like so low quality. I think that's kind of making an argument against the use of it at all.
Yeah, we say that, and then I'm sure even this conversation we're having right now is probably going to split some of our audience in terms
Yeah.
of how they feel about certain things, because I was looking at something on Apple Podcasts, and I saw something that was the number one rated TV film and history podcast currently.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it had clearly a generative AI logo. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, that logo looks terrible. And then I looked and I'm like, this is the number one show. It only has 4 ratings and they're
Yeah.
all 1 star.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I looked at it and I went, what is this? And it's a completely generative AI podcast covering different film history periods and topics. And I was like, well, that's terrifying.
That's become a real thing. And part of the reason I'm so kind of frosty towards AI is that like everything I'm good at appears to be first on the chopping block, like they're replacing writers, they're replacing podcasters, they're replacing performers. And that's, it's just kind of like taking away the only things that I have to contribute to this world. And so that's part of the reason I'm a little frosty about it. But I'm really thinking there's a bubble happening. I don't know. I think we are dumping so much money into AI and we are really like betting hard on this happening, but people don't want this. Like generally talk to anybody. Like what's the first thing that happens? A new app rolls out an AI feature. You turn off the AI feature. Like people don't want to be using it because we're not using it for the right things. We're not like, yeah, you can use it to like polish up an email or something like that, but that's not what people are using it for. And the idea that people are using it to recreate art or to make cheaper movies or to just make the fan version of a movie that you've always wanted to see but never really could because those damn studio executives cast some woman that you don't like it's nonsense. And I guess the thing that worries me is just like the younger generation that grows up with this stuff and like has instant access to this kind of stuff, like they're not going to think it's weird, so as our generation ages and continues to like fade out, then I think AI is just going to be like the next thing. But part of me is hoping that there is just going to be this big bubble about it and it's going to burst eventually. And
I feel like the only places where I feel qualified to talk about it are in art, which I am vehemently against.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, in my school, I know teachers use it because what they'll do is they'll ask for, because there's big gaps, especially with English language learners.
Yeah.
And so they'll ask for like curriculum texts, like stories and things that are in the curriculum text that are grade level or above that the kids can't read.
Right.
Kind of like rewritten in more basic language for people who are learning English language. And I'm like, and even I am like conflicted about that, but I'm like, I understand where they're coming from. And then you have to weigh what are the positives versus the environmental impacts and other things like that. The area where I do not feel qualified to talk about it, but I'm optimistic in the sense that maybe this is where people are going, is I'm very curious to see how, like, where this goes in terms of science.
Yeah.
Like if there's a way for it to improve, like anything in terms of, surgery or stuff like that, that remains to be seen. And I can understand people who are pushing like, okay, we're removing a human element from this thing to make it immeasurably better in a forum where it would actually benefit from that.
Right.
Because you're not, making things better by making them look polished and dead and weird the way they are with art. And I was talking about that podcast, that's a whole AI podcast. I mean, people were, like you said, Steve, people don't want it. It only had 4 ratings and everyone's like, this is AI, don't listen to it.
Yeah.
This is crap. This is garbage, whatever, which I haven't heard it, but I would agree with that assessment without even hearing it. But also like even just scrolling randomly through Instagram or through Facebook, just the amount of like people who will just jump on like an AI trend of putting themselves in some kind of picture to make themselves into a cartoon or to make
Right.
themselves, look a certain animation style or something like that. And then just like for content creators and people whose work I admire and respect, kind of dipping into that too. It's kind of like, well, it's reaching a wider audience than I was hoping that it would.
Well, and
And
there's
it's
a
like
real
I'm not
yeah,
about to jump on and tell someone don't do that. I mean, I've
yeah.
said that a few times in so many words when commenting on things, just being like, I don't really support the use of generative AI here. And I think a lot of the people who are using it recognize all of the negative effects and decided that the image they're creating or the video they're creating, at least to them, is worth it. So I'm not about to try to lecture everybody. If you're a listener
Right.
and you've been using generative AI to create things, I'm not going to tell you not to do what you're already going to do.
I mean, I am. I'm gonna be a scold about that because
Well, good. One of us has to be the bad cop.
you're wasting massive amounts of water every time you produce one of those stupid ass videos. You're literally killing the planet with this shit. But it's also like yeah, I had a thought and totally left my mind. But I guess I think one of the huge problems that we have in this country, and I know we're going on a huge long rant that has little to do with the movie, but there's a real problem with media literacy, with
Mm-hmm.
people understanding where their news is coming from or where their media is coming from and how it's created. So there are a lot of people now, like adults, who will see an AI image and won't question it. They'll just believe it because it's on a website or it's on the news or it's on, people are not questioning whether something is AI or not. And that is incredibly dangerous, especially when we have like a regime in power that we have right now, which is bent on misinformation, which is bent on subverting the truth and protecting pedophiles and horrible people. So and they just, you've seen like how much Trump loves to use AI for like his stupid bullshit, like the social media. Like it's a tool that's being used by really bad actors to
Wait, Steve,
manipulate.
are you telling me that he doesn't have a 6-pack or an 8-pack rather? Because I've been seeing some pics and he's looking good.
Shockingly, yeah. He's not definitely like the fat crypt keeper about to keel over and die. I mean, even just now, like we're talking, this is months old story and people are going to forget about it. But like there's a video going around of RFK Jr. and Kid Rock working out together. That's like, it's an AI video. Like it's an AI video that people are just accepting. And like, it's completely asinine. And I just think this is being deployed in such an irresponsible way by people who do not have our best interests at heart. And so I'm going to continue to rail against this because like all the potential that AI has as a useful tool is outweighed by like thousands of times by the negative effects
Mm-hmm.
of it. I don't think we can make a ethical argument for the use of AI in anything.
Certainly not
all
in
of that is
art. I
all of
think
that is
we've
being
landed
front
on
loaded.
it.
All that is being backloaded for a positive review for a movie that uses a whole lot of generative AI. Like
Well,
I am
you
actually
know
getting
what?
a
Like
positive review to this.
I knew that this conversation would take this turn. So we can bring it back a little bit to talk a little bit more narratively about the movie. But like, I do want to give credit to Lily Bell for her performance in this movie. I think
Yeah, she's quite good.
for being someone with just, and I'm not trying to shit on adult film stars, like
No.
they have a specific role, and it's like soap opera actors I think often get like a short trip. It's like they're still performers, and it's like I think she's pretty believable in what she's being asked to do in this movie.
Yeah,
um
I think there are
my
actually a lot of adult performers who are good actors, like
Yeah.
and are just not given the opportunity to demonstrate that just because of the career paths that they've chosen. They get pigeonholed in a way because they're willing to take their clothes off, and I think yeah, I think that limits them in a lot of ways. So I always like it when an adult performer gets a chance to kind of cross over into something a little bit more mainstream. I don't know how mainstream we call this movie necessarily, but it is more Yeah, it's something that you would find on like a video store shelf, you know, rather than behind the beaded curtain, so to speak.
Agreed. There's an aspect to this movie also that I think was hurt by, again, probably the production schedule and the amount of money and the time in which it was made. And again, just in that we're just trying to get this thing to feature length. And that is that, you know, Taylor is putting all of these things in this prompt, right? She's deciding these are the scenarios that I want to see. I'm putting those in there. She never reads as being inexperienced with women partners. And so
Right.
when that's brought up later, when her friend Sarah Elliott Woods comes over later and she's showing her the prompts, it doesn't read like, I feel like it's intended to read like she's looking up this like forbidden thing that she's never really thought about, but now that she has this kind of AI, which I'll be honest with you again, are you saving any time typing out in the prompt? You could just probably type that into YouTube and find out a real video.
Yeah, somebody's probably made your video in real life. If you're just looking for a video of attractive women kissing in the sunset, like you're probably going to find that. You're going to find real women who did that.
Right. And so like it kind of exists in this world where it's like that's this thing you don't have access to, which is kind of funny in 2025.
It's
2026 to think about, like old fashioned.
Yeah, they're Red Shoe Diaries in a lot of ways. It's like back when like, you know, same-sex attraction was like a taboo sort of thing.
Which was maybe, you know what? I'm glad you said that, Steve, because there was a vibe in this movie that I liked, and I think you just nailed what it was. Is I think it does kind of harken back to like, it's like, okay, I'm 9 years old. I'm going to turn on HBO. Okay, what's this? Dream On? This guy's going to, you know, pull up these scenarios that would never happen in real life, and you have no other way to access. And there's kind of an old-fashionedness to this movie because when we were watching her put stuff in the prompt, it's like, okay, cool. So that's what she's into. Great.
Yeah.
Love it. But then, you know, she meets a guy at a bar and then you're like, oh, okay. So she's, you know, she's willing to have both male and female partners. Cool. Like, very common for, you know, this time for people to, you know, not be so gendered in terms of the people that they go after. And that's great. Like, more power to them. But then when she has her friend Sarah comes over, it's like she's showing her like, you're not going to believe like what I'm able to search. And then with the two of them then being stimulated by the mystery man's eyes, it then plays like it's now she can act out this thing that she's never actually done before. And I didn't get that sense from her at all in the beginning of the movie.
No.
I was just like, okay, cool. Like it's almost like she's barely signed off of that Zoom call before she has the prompt open.
Oh, she's Jeffrey Toobin it for sure. Yeah, she is. I think they're still on the other side of that line. Excuse me. Can you mute? Yeah, no, but yeah, you're exactly right. There is something kind of funny about like, oh, I've never explored with women before. I'm like, it's 2025. Like, you know, it's not going to be shocking to it. You don't need to roll it out that way. Like you can set up that like maybe you've never hooked up with this friend before, you know, that's I buy that. But like you're trying to say it's like, oh, you know, it's just make her bisexual, you know, it's not a big deal. Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that is built into this a bit for, you know, Charles Band, as much of we talk about him being shy and a bit skittish when it comes to this stuff sometimes, but you know, he's a exploitation director, so he's got to be an exhibitionist in some way.
Yeah.
And I think this is maybe a shade of like 74-year-old Charles Band kind of coming out here a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, like we mentioned, his son is a Zalman Band. You know, that's a nod to Zalman King, the great soft core peddler of the late 80s, early 90s, who created Red Shoe Diaries and Two Moon Junction and a bunch of other things like that. I don't know if there's a direct like name inspiration there, but like I think those are two guys who would have worked in the same circles.
I saw something today, which was somebody, and I think it was a Photoshop thing, not a generative AI thing, but it was someone had put all of the Jenna Maroney movies into David Lynch poster designs. And one of them, the poster for Dune was remade into the poster for Emmanuel Goes to Dinosaur Land.
Oh my God. That's
And I
so
was like, I
good.
kind of need that. Like, I
That's still
kind
one
of
of my
need a
favorite.
print of that for my house. That was one of my favorite like moments. Like sometimes you have a conversation with somebody about media and you introduce them to something that you thought was common knowledge, and it's such a rewarding thing when you realize that not everyone knows that. And I was talking to a friend about that being one of my favorite jokes, and I was like, "Yeah, man," I was like, "I don't actually remember what the first Emmanuel movie I saw was," and he's like, "Wait, that's real?" I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that is very, very real.
There
You
was a
need to get yourself
remake made
acquainted with
in
Sylvia Crystal quickly."
Yeah, there was a remake of Emmanuel, I just learned, made in 2024. There's like a new, like, kind of Tony Emmanuel movie, which is nuts to me. And also I'm kicking myself now because I'm realizing I don't think we brought up on our Femalien episode Emmanuel in Space. I don't think we brought it up once, and that's a missed
There was
opportunity
something else
because that
too.
was there's clearly like
Mhm.
a direct line there.
That happens every once in a while. There was a movie we didn't, I forget which episode it was, but it was one that we recorded, one of the last two or three that we recorded. And there was a movie that we didn't bring up, and I was kicking myself later. I was
Yeah,
like, God damn it. How is this not part of the conversation?
right.
Like somebody's going to be like, oh, somebody's going to comment and be like, oh, and by the way, you're forgetting this. And I'm going to be like, yes, I am. I
Yeah,
100% know that now.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't remember exactly what it was, but you know what? Hindsight is 2020, and there's no way we were having such a great that Femalian conversation was so fun,
That
and
was
it's
so fun.
like
Yeah,
I I wouldn't put and I love I think it was that we had a guest with a different perspective, and
yeah,
we
yeah.
kind of wanted to let her kind of take the lead on that one a little bit, whereas like it could have very easily devolved into me talking about watching Cinemax in 1992, which I feel like I do often on
And I feel
this.
like I think we're part of the reason why we're kind of like backloading a lot of these sort of surrender cinema movies is because we're both sort of reluctant to talk about those movies. Like, because I don't want it to turn into a recounting of my pubescent years because nobody wants to listen to that, So I think a lot of these are we're pushing them off in an evil bong kind of way where we're just like, although I'm not as virulently anti surrender cinema as I am the evil bong movies. Those are more taste issues. The surrender put off is just a little more squeamishness, I guess, or a little more shyness. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I think as they progress, sure. When it comes to ones that are from the 90s, it's like, oh no, I enjoy talking about those because they are very much rooted in a time and place. And I'm like all for remembering the feeling of discovering stuff like a forbidden fruit like that when we were like adolescence was really, really something. And it's like it's not entirely dissimilar from the feeling that you had when you first discovered music that resonated with you and you held on to for a long time, or when you discovered like your love of movies. Like yeah, maybe it's a little bit more of a niche thing, but it's anytime I think you had to anytime you're hearkening to that like DIY pre-internet way to
yeah,
find stuff, like that's we're probably among the youngest people, or I should let me rephrase that, we're probably among the oldest. uh I'm trying to think how to say this now. We're kind of on the back end of people who experienced all that stuff pre-internet. Like I think people even maybe 5 to 7 years younger don't quite share that experience. So I guess we're on the young end who can talk about like being part of a DIY scene. Like
we're the
maybe on the
last
surface,
generation that was taught to type on a typewriter. I guess is a kind of a
sure.
way to put it. Like I did, like my
Yeah.
first class. Like I'm probably about as young as we get for still having learned to type on an electric typewriter.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, maybe on its face, there's not a lot of overlap between discovering like softcore movies on Cinemax and
Right.
being part of like a DIY like punk and hardcore scene. But
Yeah.
there sort of is, because when I wanted to discover new bands, I had to order mail order record company catalogs, and I had to make phone calls. And when websites first started to become more popular, it made that easier, which felt like a blessing at first. And then it was like, okay, well, it took away from the hunt
Yeah.
and finding these things. And it's kind of the same thing with the internet having that instant gratification of everything that you want right there, because it takes away from like, okay, Assault of the Party Nerds is not any better than a softcore somebody watched in the year 2005.
Right.
But I would consider it to be, because that was a movie you had to stumble upon. Like, you had to happen across that kind of movie.
We used to be a proper country. We left porn in the woods for people to just wander out and find, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. And to harken back to something we were talking about a long time ago in this episode, I had pulled up the pulp noirs, and we are correct that this is not one of the pulp noirs. Quadrant and Death Streamer are the only two that have been released so far from that label. Subscriber is the third one. Subhuman, Bad CGI Werewolves, Zombie Hotel, Surprise Party, The Lost Girl's Private Diary. That sounds like we're getting back to Torchlight down there.
Yeah.
Bengali 2024, and a movie called Hourglass. Now, how many of these movies end up getting finished and released based, that's the initiative right now. Check back with us in 6 to 9 months and see if these have seen the light of day. That we might have a bride of head of the family situation on our hands.
We very well might. I know the two that are like in production or in post-production right now. There's one called The Grim Rapper, and there's another one called Werewolves versus Supermodels that I believe Danny Draven is working on.
And Grim Rapper goes back forever. I mean, that's been one of those names floating around since probably Alchemy and Big City Pictures.
Yeah, maybe even earlier. Yeah, that's a title they've been holding on to for a while. So, and I don't know how many more of these are going to be using AI. I know definitely the posters that they released for all of the pulp noir stuff are heavily AI generated. Like it's a bit of a bummer, but that's kind of the way it is. But I don't know what kind of feedback Charlie's been getting on these. I don't know if he's kind of like developing more of a distaste for them, or if he's embracing them even further. We always say it that, like, if you want to know where the future of media is going, keep an eye on what Charles Band is doing. And he's often a few years ahead of the curve on everybody else. So it may be likely that he gives up on AI, and then all of a sudden Christopher Nolan's doing a whole AI movie and he has a whole change of heart, and that'll just really bum me out. But yeah, I'm a fan of this movie. I'm a fan of I think this is a cleverly built movie. I think it's using this conceit pretty well. I'm never going to get on board with the AI train. I'm having a real hard time seeing any kind of positive argument for its existence. And I don't think this movie necessarily justifies that, even if it has a lot of things that I do really enjoy.
Well, all of our listeners who are currently looking at Steve's profile picture of a cartoon version of himself in Dagobah with Yoda, just know that he is not a man of conviction, and he often goes back on his stances.
I just wanted Yoda to ride around on my shoulders. Is that so wrong? Come on, let me live that dream. Well, yeah, I think we've probably wrapped this up, right? Yeah, we had a strict guideline that we were not going to go longer than the length of the movie, and it's a 62-minute movie, so I think we're within that zone.
Yeah, we're getting there. And we always want to open the floor up to listeners to engage with us. And this episode is no different, but maybe even more encouraged. Like, I would love to hear people write emails or comments or something about their feelings, and not just about this film, but about Charles Band, what they think Charles Band's attitude towards AI is, where they think the future of AI in art is, whether they support it, whether they are against it, like all of that kind of stuff. I would love to open up, a forum with the listeners for something like that.
And I'm going to call it. Eventually, we are going to have Charles on the show, and I want to earmark it to talk about it, because I am curious about his opinions on it. So
no, he will be on the show eventually, and that'll definitely be something that will be brought up, because who even really knows when that happens, where we'll be with how quickly these things seem to be moving. But, as always, having these conversations is incredibly rewarding, whether it's just me and Steve, whether there's a guest here too. And we know that all of you guys enjoy listening to us every week who are here. And you know what? If this was your first time listening to one of these episodes, like, maybe you're thinking to yourself, like, I enjoyed that, and I don't really know what prompt is. I just kind of stumbled upon this, and I'm going to go back, and hopefully you go back and check out some of the back catalog, and maybe you're a Full Moon fan, and we do a service to a lot of the old Full Moon properties. And if you're somebody who's been supporting us for a while, then the best way to show us is to go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. Just more exposure, getting us out there into more fresh eyeballs and helping the show grow organically. If you want to keep up with what's going on kind of on the weekly, the best way to do that is on Instagram. You can follow us at puppetmasters_castlefreaks, or you can follow me at _Giallo_Jared. Now, Steve, I'm going to ask you, with all of the other things that you've got going on right now, do you have any like new socials or things that you want people to find you in different avenues from how they have before?
I still do not. I'm still largely eschewing social media as a concept, just because I'm reaching that point where I'm like, there are some things I'm going to let go. I think when you consume as much media as we do, I think there are some things it's okay to just say like, okay, this is not for me. I'm going to put it in a camp.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is one of those for me. Reality TV is another one of those for me. Like, I think I can just kind of comfortably say, I don't need this. If you want this, that's fine. If you want to do this, that's okay.
Yeah.
You go for it. All that being said, you can find my writing at Macabre Daily. You can find my writing at Comic Book Resources. And maybe by the time you read this in another place, but we will find out about that. And you can find my letterbox, which is the one social media I really do engage with outside of the Instagram for this show. My letterbox ID is Minotaur Matador. You can find me on there. I'm engaging in a possibly futile attempt to figure out exactly how many movies I've seen. So every time I see a movie that I've seen, I'm rating it to add it to my statistics. I'm in the 4,000s at this point, but I think it's still a little low. So yeah, you can check all of that out. And you can also check out my other show. It is called Cinema Arcade. That's cinema and arcade mashed together. That is the show where we are watching movies and playing the video games based on those movies to see how they contrast, compare, detract, enhance, all of that stuff. We are months ahead on this show of where we are on that show. So I don't even know what we're going to be talking about recently, but as of my recent recording schedule, we released episodes on Nacho Libre. Yes, there's a game based on that. Godzilla. We're talking about Darkman pretty soon. We're talking about SpongeBob pretty soon. So we really covered the gamut on that show.
That is an eclectic mix.
It is an eclectic mix for sure. And if you want more of an eclectic mix, you'll have to tune into us next week, because next week we are talking about the movie that might have one of the lowest reputations of almost any movie we've covered, and certainly has the lowest budget. It's a 2001 I almost called it a comedy. It's decidedly not a comedy. It is a horror thriller about a killer gladiator, and it's called Demonicus. Good name for that movie. We had a lot of fun talking about that one with a first-time guest, so definitely tune back into that one for Demonicus. And if you liked this episode, we've got some more Surrender Cinema Torchlight stuff coming your way as well. So check that out. And thank you everybody for listening. And now I'm just going to type our finale into this AI generator here. Let's just add golden hour lighting. And there we go. Oh, look, it's a very shiny naked ladies. Okay. All right.
How fitting. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in as always. We will see you next week for Demonicus. Typing those naked ladies, golden hour, watching Empire Strikes Back.